Hello student, good morning. I hope all of you are doing fine. I am also very fine. Today this is the first online class with you. So join the class one by one, giving your name, roll number, section and shift. So I am waiting for your presence. Today I am going to discuss about Chapter 1, Scientific Process and Measurement. I already taught in the class about Chapter 1. So for your understanding, repeating again, giving revision for your better understanding. I think so this chapter is very important, scientific process and measurement. You see here in the book, scientific process and measurement. We are to find out the answers to various questions in our daily life. We often need to answer questions such as what is your height, what is your weight, what is the time now, or what is the temperature today. In order to answer this question, measurements of height, weight, time and temperature are vital. We are dependent on such measurement in our day-to-day life. Actually, we can quantify things through measurement. Measurement is the process of determining the ratio of a physical quantity. So you can underline the definition. Measurement is the process of determining the ratio of a physical quantity. What is physical quantity? By mentioning some object with numbers, ratio of a physical quantity. For example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, numbers, or we can say unit, 1 meter, 2 meter, 2 kg, 3 kg, like that. We are familiar with various forms of measuring things in different situations of our life. For example, we have to depend on measurement while buying rice or cooking oil from the grocers, or putting orders to our tailors for making clothes. You see, what is this? The figure. This is the scale, ruler. With this ruler we measure some figures, especially in geometry, construction or theorem. For example, if we draw a triangle, draw a square, or draw a rectangle, we have to use this scale, this type of scale or ruler. So next, thermometers. With this thermometer we measure temperature of the body. Clinical thermometer, clinical thermometer. In every house or family, there must be a clinical thermometer for measuring fever, especially or commonly fever we measure with this help of this thermometer. So by the end of these chapters, we will be able to explain the scientific process and experiment, explain the various steps of scientific process, explain the necessity of measurements and importance of unit, explain the fundamental and derived units, measure length, mass and time, measure the volume of different sizes of solid, measures the volume of liquid, measures the temperature. Lesson 1. What is science? Science is a special kind of knowledge. Do you know what knowledge is? Knowledge is information related to something. Now the question that may arise is, what information is related to science? You have learned about living, non-living things, water, air and soil in your primary science course. These are the elements of nature's natural environment. Moreover, you are also familiar with various natural phenomena such as how rain falls, how plants produce their food, etc. Therefore, science is the special knowledge related to nature's and natural phenomena. Incident, national incident, processes like that. For example, water, flow of water, water current, and also the animals, how they are acting or performing, like flying, swimming. All these are natural phenomena or incident. But any information related to nature is not science. If someone gives an imaginative explanation of a natural happening, that may not be considered as science. That explanation needs to be validated through experiments or observation. Hence, scientific explanation must be supported information gathered through the process of scientific experiment or observation. You might have heard interesting tales on the origins of rainfall, but though these tales explain the causes and origins of rainfall from scientific point of view, no, these types of explanation are not based on science because they are grounded on and supported by any experimental finding. How do you acquire this knowledge? We acquire the knowledge of science through experiment, analysis, observation, logical thinking. These are the processes of science. As the knowledge is science, similarly the process of acquiring knowledge is also science. So I hope you have understood the meaning of science. So science is the knowledge related to nature and natural phenomena. Science is the special knowledge related to nature and natural phenomena. That means to acquire the science of knowledge of science, we must go through experiment, analysis. Experiment means for example, scientific project. For example, you demonstrated project during science fair at school. So that is experiment, one type of experiment. Analyze to elaborate. In Bangla we can say বিশ্লেষণ করতে হবে, analysis or description, বর্ণনা. Observation, you must observe, পর্যবেক্ষণ. And logical thinking, যুক্তিক চিন্তা. Logical thinking, যুক্তি থাকতে হবে, reasonable হতে হবে, যুক্তিগত, logical thinking. These are the process of science. These are the process. Without this process, you cannot acquire the knowledge of science. Science, we can say, science is truth. There is no false or imagination. So it must be practical, real, authentic, As the science, knowledge is science, similarly the process of acquiring knowledge is also science. The process of acquiring knowledge is also science. As scientific process is required to acquire the knowledge of science, a scientific mind or viewpoint is also needed. This includes logical thinking, recognizing others' opinion, and admitting self-errors. Logical thinking, recognizing others' opinion, recognize, to allow, to prove others, what others give opinion or tell something about that. Logical thinking. Admitting self-errors. If you have mistake or error, you must admit. Or if then you correct it. This is also known as being science oriented. How do we then define science? Science is the knowledge related to nature and natural phenomena which is obtained through observation and experiment or supported by experimental data and a science oriented view. Experimental data, it must be some data, some collected information, and a science-oriented view. You must see according to scientific view. The knowledge of science is as important as the process and the system of acquiring knowledge, whereas a science-oriented mind is even more important. So this is about science. And next, steps of scientific process. You have so far learned that the knowledge of science is the knowledge related to nature and natural phenomena. Now the question is there only one particular process or more than one processes to acquire the knowledge of science? Different scientists acquire the knowledge of science in different methods and systems, but there were similarities among them in many areas. On the basis of those similarities, the course of scientific process may be illustrated as follows. So you see in the figure, scientific process: selecting question or problem, collecting information, probable result or hypothesis, planning of experiment and observation method, preparing tools for data collection, example, checklist, observation and data collection, dissemination of finding, acceptance or rejection of result, analysis of collected data. So in order to examine or undergoing experiment, you have to go through these processes or through these steps. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I mean 8 step you have to go through. You have to undergo. Experiment, lesson 2 and 3. Experiment is an important method of finding new knowledge in science. In this method, a scientist at first takes a probable decision hypothesis in the light of known or existing information in order to answer a certain question. Then he verifies the validity of the hypothetical decision through experiment. If the hypothesis is not supported by the data, he may decide to take a new probable decision. After that, he again verifies the new decision through further experiment. The main characteristic of experimental method. After that, he again verifies the new decision through further experiment. The main characteristic of experimental method is in it only one variable is changed, keeping all other static. The various steps of experimental method are described below. One example of experiment here. The experiment on whether water is necessary for a plant to survive. This is the experiment. You have to prove that water is necessary, water is essential for plant to survive. We will examine or prove for the plant if water is essential, water is a must for the plants or not. Things required for the experiment. What we have to collect or need: 2 small pots, 2 flower plants, water, dry soil. For this experiment we will need 2 small pots, 2 flower plants, water, dry soil. Number 1, problem selection. In the first step of the experimental method, you have to select the problem. In this case, the problem is, why does the flower plant die after being planted? Why does the flower plant die after being planted? The problem selection. The problem is. Number 2, known or existing information. You try to gather relevant information from books or by asking questions to your teachers and parents on why plants die. You have come to know that plants may die in absence of water. Number 3, taking probable decision, potential outcome. From the known information that you have explored so far, you take a probable decision, hypothesis. Here the hypothesis is, without water plants die. Number 4, planning the experiment. Now you draft a plan for conducting the experiment. Remember that in order to conduct your experiment, you will need 2 separate pots of the 2 plants. You may differentiate the 2 pots in terms of only one condition, while rest of the condition will be the same for both the pots. Otherwise, you will not be able to attest what you are looking for. Number 5, experiment. Take 2 similar small pots. It is better to take clay pots or a small plastic tops. Make small hole beneath the pots and fill them with dry soil. Now plant 2 similar flower plants, 1 in each pot. Pour water 1 pot, leave the other pot dry. Keep both the plants away from the sunlight. Observe the plants on the next day. One of the plants is about to die, the other isn't it? The other plant looks lively and fresh. So the experiment is you plant two flowers plant or two seedling, trees, two trees, as small trees or seedlings, and in one pot you give water and another pot you keep it or leave it dry, right? After, keep both the plants away from the sunlight. Observe the plants on the next day. One of the plants is about to die and another plant looks lively, looks fresh, lively and fresh. So this is the experiment. Number 6, data analysis and taking this decision. Both the pots were filled in by the same kind of soil. Both the plants were kept in the same place. The only difference between two was supply of water. One of the plants was watered while there was other one was not. What decision may we come to from this? We come to the decision that one of the plant is about to die due to want of water. Without water, plants cannot survive or plants cannot live. This experiment showed. Number 7, publication of result. You can publish your result of the experiment in the bulletin of the board of a school. These are the steps that an experimental method may involve. These are the steps of scientific process. These 7 steps are the steps of scientific process. So in order to prove any experiment, you have to go through these 7 steps of scientific process, right? Next, lesson 4 to 5, necessity of measurement. Necessity of measurement, we know very well about this. With necessity of measurement means, for example, going to school, you need time. At what time your school or your class starts from, and at what time your school breaks up, finished your class. So this is the matter of measurement. If you go through the shop or groceries to buy groceries, you have the shopkeeper will measure your things or product. For buying rice, potato, also mango or vegetables, you will need measurement. And if you want to buy some clothes or t-shirt, you must have measure or adjust with the measurement of t-shirt. That's why without measurement we cannot lead our life. So this is all about measurement. necessity of measurement. So to measure something, we need units. I already taught in the class units of measurement and also fundamental and derived units. Okay, so today is the first class. That's why I gave you revision class today. I hope in the next class we will be able to finish reading this chapter, and after that I will give some question related to these chapters, and also will solve the exercise question, creative question, and also short question. So sorry for the disturbance of internet. Sometimes it's stuck. I mean, the signal is very slow. So it's a bad luck in the class. So thank you for joining the class, watching my video and listening to my lecture. So you must be attentive to your study. You must go through this chapter yourself at home again and again. So thank you. Best of luck. Assalamu alaikum. Goodbye.